Welcome to this week's video collection. We've documented everything from touching moments to thrilling trips. Whether you're looking for motivation or simply a good chuckle, this video has you covered. So sit back and unwind and take in the best parts of the previous week. Remember to like and subscribe. What are you starting to like less the older you get? Story 1. The way the internet is in 2022. Ads, subscriptions, paywalls, unhelpful sites with more pictures than words, and streaming service content split up between around 200 platforms, and most of the good content is exclusive to one and never available elsewhere. On browsers, you have to have multiple extensions or the like to tell cookies, trackers, and ads to go away. For people in Australia, we're also geo-blocked, so we have to use VPN to get around it or turn to other means. Commercial ratio is unlistenable, with the same 25 songs on repeat at the only 5 I can remember in the channel for, and even that is preferable to the afternoon talk show of cackling, squawkling gossip. I'm happy to pay a contribution to my group Spotify. I can have that going on my phone instead of listening to any of that crap. I can have long playlists, my kind of music, and I don't have to pull over to change CDs. Changing phone service providers is simple enough on the surface, but then you also have to update your two-factor authentication, and if it's tied to the old number, which is out of service, you have to go in person to a store or office or call customer support. For each instance, those are the most prevalent gripes I have with modern life. It's all in regards to what I watch, listen, or read, and the devices I do so on. It's this tangled web of interdependent, exclusive, pushing, paywall blocking, subscription requiring noise that really does distract from more important, more healthy use of time, energy, and money. Oh, so you want to log in? How about giving us your email to save 15% and get free shipping? No? Well, good luck finding the X to close this pop-up modal. Yep, everything is an effing ad. People look at me like I'm crazy, but look at The Rock's Instagram. Nearly every post of his, he's trying to sell something. His energy drink, his tequila, his movie, his workout gear, whatever. I mean, I get it, you gotta make money, but this dude is one of the highest paid actors in Hollywood. How much more crap do you need? Why is everything a goddamn ad? His Insta used to just be like, yo, here I am working out at 5 a.m., hitting the grind, hope you guys have a good day. But now, it's the same thing, only disguised as, yo, here I am working out at 5 a.m. I'm a little tired in the morning, so I crack open my energy drink, available at the link below, to get my energy back up. Remember to share and subscribe, and don't forget to check out my new merch. And it's not just him, it's everybody. Just ads disguised as content. So gross. SEO has made how do I fix X searches utterly useless. I hate humans sometimes. This works well, and everyone's using it. Perfect place to break things and fit ads in the gaps. We can't have nice things because we don't deserve them. People complain about, all their shows and stuff being split up between different streaming services, but some of us are old enough to remember cable TV and how obscenely expensive that was. And not only having all your shows, split between the different packages you'd have to purchase with cable, but also having to watch them at specific dang times. And this is me sounding old and ranting, but I also do absolutely rant about the streaming service thing, because it used to just be a couple. You had like Netflix and Hulu and probably one more or something, and all the shows were there. And now, none of the shows are anywhere most of the time, especially if they're on HBO Max, or Max, as they like to be called now. Because boy, if a show was on there, and especially if it was a cartoon, now it's gone forever. From everything. Great. Story 2. Loud places like bars and parties and stuff like that. I don't understand pubs that can't decide if they want to be a club or a pub. People come just to have a burger, a beer, and a conversation, and the place has speakers blasting music no one is listening to. Can only talk to the person next to me. Just ruins the experience. In Australia, the volume level of music is linked to the liquor license. If it stipulates background noise or just above, often it's tested practically by seeing if 2 people 1 meter apart can comfortably speak. If they can't, a restaurant liquor license is no longer sufficient. Whether or not the venue you speak of might have a similar restriction, don't know the country of origin, they are making a decision to have music at a level people cannot comfortably speak for some reason. Do they think it gets customer attention from foot traffic? Are they aiming for a younger crowd with excessive income? Is the boss a butt who doesn't want staff reading the room and adjusting accordingly, so sets it at the volume it will incrementally arrive at by 9 p.m.? I'd suggest giving them some feedback via email. They mightn't even know they're doing it and harming their own business. Televisions running with music in the background when no sport is on is where I draw the line. Having a drink with someone if they are drawn to a TV with absolute junk on it? The best pubs should be like the dingy sitting rooms of an old house or public house where it gets its name. My perfect pub, being from Ireland, has low ceilings and open fire. You could listen to chat at a bar when you're getting a pint or sit up there if you wanted. I know some nice bigger pubs, but those smaller places when it's driving wind and rain outside, getting a pint of porter sitting into the fire, there is absolutely nothing else like it. Sure, you wouldn't taste the first one, it would have slid down, and I'd have a second one with a raise of glass to the barman. Winter pints. My brother-in-law, 24, convinced us, 31, to go out to some downtown clubs, and it was loud and expensive, and I don't know why all those people are out there not able to hear their own friends talk. Like, I just want to have my friends over and play board games and make my own mixed drinks. Story 3. Loud noises in general. I've always been sensitive to loud noises, but it seems to have gotten worse lately. I had the opposite problem when I moved to San Francisco from Manhattan. My place was in a neighborhood out towards Ocean Beach that gets super quiet at night. I'd gotten so used to constant 24/7 noise in Manhattan, traffic, sirens, people, the bar across the street from my apartment, etc. My first night back in San Francisco, I was walking through my neighborhood and almost had a legit panic attack at how quiet everything was. Like I had somehow left society or something. It's weird, but I also just felt way less safe. You'd think the opposite would be true, but in New York City, you're always around people. Walking around quiet, empty streets just feels eerie, like you're all alone. What's funny is that San Francisco is the second densest city by population after New York City in the U.S., which just speaks volumes about the insane constant level of activity in New York City. I know the feeling, having been living in Berlin for the last 10 years or so, and while it's orders of magnitude less insane than Manhattan, it's still a big city with constant noise and lights and life. My parents live on the edge of a small town, and when I visit, it's the most eerie thing, and I can't sleep because of all the quiet and dark. It's not even like camping where you have animal and nature sounds. It just a sort of dead silence. Feels unnatural and wrong. Unrelated, but also the people. I might count as a bit of an odd-looking person, tall, lanky, somewhat androgynous, and the constant stares were ridiculous. In the city, no one gives a crap. Yes, noise bugs me so much now. Since I had my baby 7 months ago, I really can't stand loud sounds, and I've realized just how friggin' loud everybody around me is. Push the microwave door shut? Nah, better just slam it. Twist the door handle and close it somewhat slowly? Nah, kick it hard and let that click ring out. Music at a regular volume? Nah, 98% volume, and why don't you just go ahead and drum on the walls with hammers while you're at it? I think it's an inherent sensory issue for me, and getting older and having an often sleeping baby made it so much worse. On one hand, I grew up in a fairly small town and also lived outside of the town limits. Like, I couldn't see any neighbors aside from one house across the street, and they were literally probably around 300 to 400 feet away. So I was very used to growing up with like no sounds whatsoever, except when I was a really little kid and we lived next to some train tracks. And so, I don't know, for the most part, you wouldn't think I'd be able to handle a lot of noises now that I live in Minneapolis, but yeah, no, I guess I don't like them. And now this post has made me have to actually think about that, and I guess I don't like it even more. And now I'm not going to stop thinking about it. Cool. Story 4. Anything with a lot of hype that requires me to stand in a long butt line. I saw a truly ridiculous line at a state fair a couple months ago. Was wondering what it was for. Not that I'd stand it in anyway, but curious. It was insanely long, like I can't even think of the proper superlatives for the size of this line. I asked a friend about it. Donuts. Just some effing donuts. These donuts could have been handcrafted by God himself with flour grown in the fields of heaven and kneaded with bald eagle tears. I wasn't going to spend hours of my day in that line, especially when I'm at a fair and have so many other things to do with the limited time I get there. This is mine. I only go to theme parks in the off-season and will not wait in line for food anymore. I love In-N-Out, but I go maybe a couple times a year because the line is always out through the parking lot, often stretching into the street. It's good, but it's not that good, folks. What is the worst lie you caught your parents telling? Story 1. I won't get mad at you. My mom said that to me when she told me to tell her when I decided to have intercourse. I was 17 and had been dating a college boy for about 6 months, still technically a virgin, laughed my butt off. When he and I finally did the do, I was terrified to tell her, so I left a page-long note on the counter and went to school. When I got home, she sat me down in my room and screamed at me. Definitely put a damper on our relationship. I had a similar situation with my mom, except she took it farther. I was 16 and told her I had intercourse with my boyfriend, who'd I'd been with for a year. I was terrified to tell her, and I was justified to be. I've never seen her so angry in my life, screaming, hitting things, threatening to hit me. She took away my cell phone, laptop, and wouldn't allow me to see friends. I was watched constantly and wasn't allowed to be home alone. She called me a B and an S and told her friends and my aunt about it. She made me take a pregnancy test and watched. She said I wasn't trustworthy enough to take the pill, so she put me on the depot shot, which caused me to have a nonstop period for 6 months. She threatened to have me go live with my grandma 5 hours away, whom I barely knew. I wasn't the daughter she thought she knew. I've never looked at her the same way again. Nothing says great parenting like S-shaming your daughter. Jesus H. Christ, why do these crazy parents think their teen having intercourse once automatically makes them a 8W who's going to sleep around and be reckless? Like, I personally had a really thorough intercourse education experience. I was completely prepared and made my college boyfriend wait many months. Somehow that wasn't good enough? Parenting really should require a thorough psych examination to qualify. If that was in any way practical or realistic or without interfering with bodily autonomy. I never got that line from my parents, in part because I was always open about most things with them. I was home for Christmas and New Year's my freshman year when I tried pot for the first time, for example. Came home late, and when I woke up the next morning, my parents asked me how my New Year had been. I answered honestly that I had tried smoking weed and kinda liked it. It was like they short-circuited. I think they said something like, "Oh, well, we're glad you had fun." They apparently had to talk with each other later about should they be mad at me? Weren't they supposed to be mad about this? They decided they couldn't get mad because it wasn't like I had lied or hidden something from them, and considering how they had both smoked pot back in the day, and to this day in my mom's case, they didn't feel like they could throw stones. I heard that a lot as a child, and I refused to say it to mine. I will tell him, tell me the truth, or you get in trouble for what you did and the lie. Edit. So what all of the idiots in my replies are basically saying is don't ever give your child consequences or ever put them in trouble and let them do what they want. No, you have no idea how to raise your kids. I'm sorry, you had crappy parents, but that's not my fault. Yep, one time I told the truth about something while still believing I won't get mad if you tell the truth applied. Got one of the biggest scoldings of my life. Made me really wish I had just lied. It's a good way to teach kids to be liars. Okay, to the folks who are saying, like, I'm not going to say that to my kids, I'm going to be honest and be like, hey, you could either be in trouble for that or be in trouble for that and the lie. There are parents out there who say, as long as you tell me I won't get mad, and actually follow through with that and tend to have really good relationships with their kids because their kids aren't going to try and hide stuff from them out of fear. I've seen parents like that. I've had parents like that. And it's kind of wonderful to have supportive parents who know that their kids can and will make mistakes, and the parent's going to be there to help them understand and get through it. Because I promise, if a kid does make a mistake, they're learning from it without you throwing a fit like a child. Story 2.
Hey folks, quick content warning, this next story does touch on R. And so if you are uncomfortable with that, you might want to brace yourself, or you may just choose to scroll to the time code on screen and skip this story.
that my parents split up when they were young. At 13, I found out that my dad had cheated on my mom and she couldn't forgive him. Then I found out that this cheating had resulted in a 12-year-old boy. Yes, they split when I was 5 weeks old, who both my parents knew about, but I didn't. At 21, I found out my father was R'd. Men being R'd by women, especially in the military, didn't really happen 30 years ago. No one thought anything about the barmaid serving my dad free drinks all night and insisting on taking him to his room. My dad woke up the next morning to 4 things. A note from the woman telling him she had a good time, my mom's engagement ring from when she'd caught him, a hell of a custody battle on his hands which he lost, a lifelong alcohol addiction. Just a side note, when my dad eventually told my mom as an adult that he didn't consent to the cheating and he sought help, she was really understanding and they are now good friends and co-parents. I find this to be extremely plausible, emphasis on extremely. Today it's well known that some women prefer to target military men because of the guaranteed money coming in, plus other benefits, and the military will side with the women 99% of the time. These women tend to frequent strip clubs and, you guessed it, bars. Some even work there as it's easy access to their victims. Women usually are men differently, it often involving some kind of impairment and or psychological attacks. I am not military, but I had an on-again, off-again relationship with a woman over the course of maybe 6 or 7 years. She would bump into me at the bars, be super happy to see me, and then start feeding me drinks. She would offer some weed too, which normally I knew not to mix the two because I just cannot handle it. However, once I was good and drunk, I would say yes, black out, and usually wake up with her naked next to me. A few times my buddy saved me, but this happened probably 10 times. Every time I would wake up and regret what I had done to the point that I would cause anxiety attacks for weeks. I would check to see if there was a condom or wrapper anywhere. There never was. Turns out she was using fake accounts to follow my friends on social media and would figure out where we were through that. It never occurred to me that this was R until now. It's that common? Something sort of similar happened to my brother-in-law. Years before he met my sister, he had a drunken one-night stand with some woman. He never consented to unprotected intercourse, but years later, when he's a married man with a family of his own, he finds out he has a secret son. Fortunately, the woman had no intention of having him be anything but a non-consenting sperm donor and was intent on raising him as a single mother. However, the kid eventually started asking questions, and she contacted him asking if he would be willing to meet his son. The story has a sort of happy ending, though. Our side of the family, including my sister, pretty much welcomed him as a bonus son, grandchild, nephew. Not the kid's fault, his mother acted like a C. He now spends 1 weekend a month with his father's family, gets along great with his half-siblings, and he makes sure he gets cool gifts for his birthday and the holidays too, so he never feels left out in that regard.
Yeah, folks, if this is happening, if someone is coercing you into intercourse or not getting consent from you due to, feeding you illicit substances, stuff like that, it's not okay. And you shouldn't feel ashamed or anything like that. You should tell someone that you trust, report it to the police, whatever you need to do. But please don't feel ashamed. Don't feel like you need to hide it. S-assault is S-assault. The end.
Story 3. Driving with the interior lights on in the car is illegal and dangerous. It is actually very dangerous in certain conditions. If you're on a dark road and the interior of your car is brightly lit, you have very bad visibility through the glass panes of the car. It is, however, not illegal. I was driving near dusk a few days ago while my daughter was reading a book in the front passenger seat. I turned on the light for her seat because she was starting to strain her eyes. As it got fully dark outside, I realized that I was having better night vision than normal. My multifocal contacts, like bifocal glasses but as contacts, switch prescriptions based on my eyes dilating. With the lights on, I was getting more of the long distance than the reading. Weirdly, it was one instance where having some light on inside the car was helpful. We didn't have full lights inside, just her light. I just wanted to play my Game Boy. Right? My parents would beam me out for turning the lights on to play it, but wouldn't fork up the $8 to buy me a worm light, lol. It's too expensive. God damn, how many times have I heard that crap? Like, even for trivial stuff like watching a movie at the cinema with friends or clothes. I hate to be that guy, but are you sure it wasn't? There have been many times I've said that to my kids because it was. We had enough money for rent that month and some groceries, but anything else was out of the question. We even had to skip bills some months and catch up the next because the money just wasn't there. I didn't tell my kids that, but I did tell them that we couldn't be going out and doing other stuff. It wasn't my kids' place to worry about the fact that we were living paycheck to paycheck and barely made rent sometimes. It was their job to worry about school and whether the kid in the next row liked them. Story 4.
Hey folks, another content warning. This next story does deal with talk of self-termination, so if you're uncomfortable with that, you might want to brace yourself, or, as always, scroll to the time code on screen now to skip this story.
This lie was told by all parents in this town. Mainly, they told their children that if you got a venereal disease, then your life is ruined. The goal was to scare the kids into not having intercourse, but it had tragic consequences. In my hometown, a 17-year-old kid put a shotgun under his chin. It blew off his jaw and everything below his eyes. He survived, and about 10 years ago I was in town and saw a very thin guy with no jaw and a cloth covering his face. I think it was him at about 45 years old. The reason he did it was not reported at the time, but many years later my mom told me that he tried to kill himself because he had a wet dream and thought the emission was a sign of venereal disease. His parents, like all parents around here, had always told him that if he got VD, then his life was ruined. There was no internet to answer our questions back then, so without being able to get any other information about what happened, he decided to kill himself. The parents of that town knew what happened, but they decided not to tell any of their kids the truth because it was better to risk more self-terminations than to provide any intercourse education. Oh my God, this is so grim. I hate that sexuality has been so stigmatized. People would rather have dead children than a kid who isn't a virgin / one who caught a STD / VD and needs an antibiotic or medication. Education only helps prevent the transmission of those diseases in teen pregnancy. It doesn't make people go out and have intercourse. I hope things in that town have changed, and if they haven't, I hope those parents and not the kids get the karma coming to them. Not my story, but a priest in the UK started the first self-termination helpline of the country in 1953 after he was deeply saddened after performing the funeral of a 14-year-old girl who committed self-termination because she thought her first period was an STI. Edit. His name was Chad Vera, and he also encouraged intercourse education. Kind of off topic, but my mom told me that a gyno's job is to scrape your insides and that you bleed and it's terrible. Talk about traumatizing someone. I still can't shake the picture of a doctor going in there with a scalpel. It's obviously not comfortable, but I've never even bled during an exam. People really need to watch what they say to their children about intercourse and their bodies. That could have turned me off from ever visiting an OBGYN.
I can't stand when people stigmatize anything, that has to do with intercourse, be it diseases, your own body. Stigmatizing an OBGYN, that's just... Don't do that, parents. Parents, please. I know that you're maybe scared of this stuff and you don't know it, so before you go telling stuff to your kids, maybe educate yourself. It's kind of your job as a parent to educate yourself before you go telling this stuff to your kids and messing with them in these ways. It's awful.
What is the worst reason to break up with someone?
Story 1. You think they're too good for you. I left my boyfriend 4 years ago for this reason. Missed him ever since. Messaged him last week, sent him a photo of the plushie he gave me. Said I missed him and I've never been able to stop thinking about him. I didn't really expect a response. He messaged me back. We got back together 3 days ago, but today he leaves on an overseas trip for almost 3 weeks. I can't go too last minute and I lost my passport somewhere years ago, so I'll be seeing him off. I know we just reconnected and it's only going to be a couple of weeks, but it hurts again. But I know I'm so lucky he took me back in the first place, but I love him so much and I already miss him again. I'm so glad everything worked out, but why did you think he was too good for you? He's just doing so well. He's completely self-sufficient and functional, studying, working, and having similar hobbies as me, do-it-yourself stuff, gaming, but he still manages to find time for me. Me, damaged, depressed, maybe just downright lazy, and a ball of anxiety to boot. I was actually living in a youth shelter at the time when he and I met because my previous ex-girlfriend and I lost my job, defaulted on rent, and lost our condo. Spent all our money on her weed because she needed to use it for pain management or something. I used to believe it, but now it's really hard because she would never even clean up after herself. But then she would go on to walk 10 miles in the summer for weed. He had himself in a far better position than I did, and still does despite the challenges of everything he did, and I felt like a leech every time he took me out and paid for something, or I'd stay over with him but didn't have any place to invite him to myself. I really struggled with something as simple as finding a real steady job. I'm not unskilled. I've done a lot of different things, mechanical, electronic, CAD, a little bit of programming, but I've never done them in a work setting, so I can't exactly claim years of experience. Feels like such a waste of time. For every job I apply to, there will be a dozen better applicants with less holes in their resume and more experience and more charisma, less anxiety. All my money comes from doing odd jobs and running errands for my housemates. I still don't pay for my rent, I don't make nearly enough, so I'm in a program that covers it. The more I think about this, the more it seems like a bad idea again. The last thing I want to be is just a burden, but I can't let him go again. We work so well together. I make things on paper, he makes them real. That's enough. I've really got to get going. It's almost time to catch him at the station. I don't know you, but you don't sound lazy to me. You sound like you have a brain that's always sticking its foot out to trip you with its funky dopamine bungling ways, but that you're also smart. Nobody learns CAD by accident and without having a decent reason to. And with the right support, you could do a whole lot more than you know to give yourself credit for. I think being with someone who loves you where you are, sees you with all your imperfections, and loves you exactly the way you are, that's the dream. If you think highly of your fella, trust his judgment. He sees something in you. You're gonna sass him for his smart butt seeing in you something he loves and thinks is worth his attention and care? Regardless of where you are in life, what you do for a living, you have worth. You have an inherent worth totally independent of your capitalistic value. You have worth as a human being with a whole lot of stuff to give that has nothing to do with your capacity for making money. He probably sees stuff in you that he hasn't found anywhere else in anyone else. You're special. Don't let your brain trip you up again. You are a human being and you're worthy of love. And it sure seems to me that someone else really must see that if he's so receptive to getting back together with you after all this time. I hope the next few weeks fly by. Thank you, dear stranger. I'm doing what I want to say is my best, but I also really hope it's not truly my best. He and I, well, we'll still be talking throughout, but we still have quite a lot more catching up to do when he gets back. I wish I had more to say, but at this point I'm texting on a bicycle, so I'd probably best put the phone down. You're doing your best with what you have at this time. At some point, you may have more or different stuff that might change what your best translates to in practical, tangible terms. Stay safe. Yeah, truly, folks, I think that there's a difference between wanting to, improve yourself and be in a good place for a relationship and thinking that someone's too good for you, though. Because that's not how that stuff works. Sometimes you do have stuff that you need to prioritize and work on before you focus on trying to find and get a relationship. But when you're in a relationship, if someone sees, the good in you and they're happy with you, they've made that choice for a reason. They don't think that they're too good for you. They might think you're too good for them in some regards. And like other people have said way better, you have value beyond just the money you make and all that other stuff. It really just sounds, like you're kind of getting in your own way, and you're probably a lot more capable in stuff than you realize. You just need the time to get that stuff figured out, but it doesn't mean that you can't have a really satisfying, wonderful relationship with this person in the meantime.
Story 2. You're worried what others will think of you for dating them. I knew a guy who broke up with a girl he adored because his friends started calling him a chubby chaser. Frankly, I thought she was adorable and maybe 30 pounds overweight at the most. But more importantly, she made him happier than I'd ever seen him. I felt as bad for him as I did for her when he broke up with her. He said she told him, "I thought you were better than this. I'm disappointed in you," when he told her they should stop seeing each other. Damn, if that didn't wake his dumb butt up, nothing will. Can I assume there was no happily ever after for these two? They were apart and he was miserable for about 6 months. Another guy kept asking her out, but she wasn't interested. She was obviously still hung up on my friend. One of our mutual friends told her, I swear, the nanosecond you go out with another guy, your jackbutt ex will come running back with his tail between his legs. They were wrong. It took 2 dates before my friend begged her to take him back. They are very happy now, though. I'm chubby, was in a gay bar, and this guy was hitting on me. At one point he said, I don't care what my friends say, I think you're hot. His friends did not like chubby guys, but he obviously did. They kept pulling him away from me. He was cute, but I could see his friends' opinions weighed heavily. When they pulled him away for the 5th time, I decided to leave. As I left, I said to one of his friends, you guys are crappy friends. You're not into big guys, but he obviously is. You don't care that he'll end up alone or unhappy. I feel sorry for him that you are his friends. I hope that he learned that his friends weren't really his friends and that next time something like that happens, he needs to use his voice. That's a shame he chose to leave her over that, but she deserves a boyfriend who will value her enough to tell people to knock it off when they speak disrespectfully about her. There was a guy who used to bully me. No one really bullies me ever, so... And I said, good for blank, he got his first girlfriend. And he said, ew, she's so disgusting. She's a bit overweight, like 35, 45 pounds. Needless to say, that was the final straw. I cut him off right quick. Very toxic human being. In my younger days, I had a couple of times, 3, needed to end dating someone because I'm black, and the parents really struggled with that. I'm raised in Europe in a pretty all-white rural society. Even though perfectly integrated, speaking the language, well-educated, or never got in trouble with the law. I had a couple of times their parents just plain rejected me even before they even met me, just not giving it a chance, just nope. The worst was when I was 18 or 19. The father was totally okay, but being a cuck and overruled by the mother, who was a high school principal and very sensitive about appearance in society, she started to just punish her for dating me. Revoke allowance, constantly grounding her, and stuff like that. She basically made her own daughter her prisoner because of seeing me. Totally messed up. So yeah, I have broken up for all the wrong reasons.
See, the thing for me is, like, that first person in the story who it's like, oh, my friends were saying, kept talking about her being, chubby or whatever, calling me a chubby chaser. And so we listened to those friends, like, I wouldn't want to date someone who thought the words of friends like that were that important and would stick around with friends who would talk like that about other people. Like, that says something about that person too. And that person, probably great in a lot of other ways, but they need to kind of figure their stuff out and not be, so beholden to these kind of crappy friends.
Story 3. Things are going too well, so you sabotage it. Oof, I tried to do this with my current partner. I'm a disabled DV survivor, and my abuser started abusing me after I developed a disability. He had me convinced that since he married an abled person, I was nothing but a burden after my disability developed. That he was a saint for not leaving me, thus I owed him a debt I could never repay. So much for sickness and health. Once I left him, and before I dated again, I shook the idea that I owed anything, but couldn't quite ever shake the burden piece. I met my current partner, we agreed to a no strings, no commitment, friends with benefits situation, and then accidentally fell in love. Whoops, LOL. I thought it would be different this time since I was disabled from the start, but we'd only been officially for maybe a month when I had a pretty significant cancer scare. I didn't tell him about the biopsy, and I tried to break up with him while waiting for the test results. He knew something was weird, so he gently pushed. Finally, I told him and said I couldn't expect anyone to put up with a disability and cancer. He said we could break up if I needed to, but I couldn't forget that whole putting up with thing. He would still be there holding my hand for every appointment because there was no way he was letting his best friend go through cancer alone. We decided to stay together, and thankfully, it was just a scare. The tests were negative, and we'll celebrate 10 years in December. As I heard it from a friend a long time ago, they're sitting, relaxing, having a good time. They've been together close to a year. In his head, wow, things are going great. I'm really happy. Out of his mouth, let's break up. Before I got diagnosed with ADHD, I had ended a couple relationships that were pretty much like that. Conflict, strife, drama, whatever is such an easy road to stimulation. The relationships were going well, so they were boring, which made me unhappy, and my brain had the bright idea it must be them that was causing it. Spoiler, it wasn't. I dated a girl who was a really good person, a good communicator, the intercourse was great, we supported each other, and just had a really high-functioning relationship. I got bored. It doesn't make sense, but I lost interest. It's like I could accurately predict how the rest of my life was going to go, and that made me lose interest. Around that time, my depression flared up hard, and I just imploded. I can relate to this. I sabotaged a pretty happy relationship during and after college because I was bored, and also very selfish. The relationship probably wouldn't have lasted anyway, but anytime he comes up, my family goes on about how nice he was, how funny, how kind, etc. That was almost 10 years ago. With my current relationship, things are mostly peaceful, but every once in a while we fight like cats and dogs. And at this point, that unpredictability is much less welcome. I just want something peaceful and secure and long-term. People who left their spouses for the person you cheated with, how did things end up?
Story 1. My ex cheated on me twice. Twice I forgave her and continued to live under her and do whatever she required of me. Then I met a girl who treated me like I'd never been treated before, who fell in love with me and me with her. But we decided not to proceed because I did love my ex and we had been together 9 years, our whole adult lives. In the end, my ex got me for a third time, and this time she emptied the house, left the dogs, and left me to move to the city with a man she met 2 weeks prior. Who was there to pick up the pieces of me? The sweet girl I met. And she gave me nothing but support and even helped me move house. We sparked our relationship again, and it felt like forever this time. She stayed. My ex was a piece of crap, always drinking and doing drugs behind my back, got a DIU, left me alone at the hospital the morning I had to go in for surgery because he was dead drunk, so things started going south, obviously. My ex was good friends with our neighbor and introduced us, and we started hanging out. First all 3 of us, but gradually just the 2 of us because my ex would constantly go missing for days at the time to go party when we were planning stuff. Our neighbor has nephews the same age as my kids and they were always together, so we'd plan things for them like going to the zoo, fishing, etc. But my ex would go MIA last minute a lot of the time. Never cheated on him, but at some point I had enough and told him it was over and to move out. He wasn't having it at all. Anyways, that brought me even closer to our neighbor. He helped me with packing his stuff and ensuring my ex wasn't violent when the time came for him to move out, since he was basically always nearby. We took things slow because none of us wanted to be in a relationship, but at this point he was already like an uncle to my kids, having known them for years, and about a year after my separation, me and my neighbor started dating officially. It's been 4 years, we bought a house on the same street a year and a half ago, planning on getting married, and I'm currently pregnant with our first together. He's a wonderful and very considerate partner. I couldn't ask for more, really. Sometimes I feel like my ex's purpose in my life was solely to introduce me to my current partner and teach me to stop accepting the unacceptable. Happy you met someone who waited for you. I'm with someone who got cheated on and is in the middle of a divorce. We plan to get married eventually, hers second and mine first. Sometimes I'm scared that I'm just a phase for her since she's going through a rough phase, or is it going to be for a lifetime? We really want it forever, but it is too soon for everything. I kind of did the same thing to her what your current partner did for you. Do you think you will fall out of love with her? Can you ever forget your past? Can you ever stop loving your ex-wife? These things always keep me up at night. Also, the country I'm in, it would be a taboo to marry a divorced lady and add to it dating her even before she gets divorced. These are some of the things which make me cautious going forward. Don't get me wrong, I don't care about getting married to her part. Dating her is a bit difficult in the current scenario. All I want to know is your perspective about your current partner. How you see her? Can you really love her as deeply as your ex-wife? Will the love die/mellow down eventually, since you no longer would be emotionally unstable? I'm asking you this because this is the closest perspective I could get on her, hence your reply will be greatly appreciated. Only time will tell. My ex will always have a part of me with her and she with me. I was with her since I was 17 and I will never forget her, but What she did to me is unforgivable. I was emotionally abused and manipulated for years and didn't do anything about it until I met someone who gave me what was missing. And since I've been given that opportunity to be loved in such a way, I will give her all of my love. Give her what was missing in her last relationship, make new memories, find things that she never did with him, and create a whole new life. It is possible. So there's a lot going on in this first story. I just want to say a few things off the bat. First off, I think divorce is fine. I don't think the divorce is necessarily a failing. Some relationships just come to an end. But on the other hand, I do think that cheating is always wrong. You shouldn't cheat. You should try to avoid it. It happens. People make mistakes. So the other thing I wanted to say is we can't totally judge all the people in these stories. We don't know everything that goes on in their relationship, and we're only getting one side of things. So I'm gonna try to not judge people too harshly unless they're just completely out of control. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to say that, I'm glad that some of these people seem to have found, some better partners, and, sometimes that's what you need. Sometimes an old relationship doesn't work. Cheating isn't the best way around it, and sounds like the first comment avoided the cheating and eventually got with a person that they're much happier with, so that's good.
Story 2. My ex-husband cheated on me and left me for her. By all accounts, they were happy for a short time, a very short time. Once the excitement of cheating wore away, they were left with nothing but each other. My ex-husband ended up alone and miserable because the woman he left me for cheated on him repeatedly. Karma. Same. And then the moment he wanted to move in with her, she started seeing another of their married coworkers. Once he realized he had tossed his family away and moved 1,600 miles to be with someone who wasn't that serious about it all, he wanted to come back. I could never. Been divorced now for 8 years, and honestly, I never realized how unhappy I was being married to him. Doing all the household management, all the emotional labor, and being the breadwinner. My life is so much less complicated, and I'm raising the kids all by myself. It's less work. I completely understand, especially the part of not realizing how unhappy you were. I was the same. Once everything settled, I realized I was free. I've never been so happy. I'm really glad for you too. Exactly this. I have both kids after splitting with my cheating ex-wife, and it is less work to do everything myself compared to doing everything myself while having someone making my life miserable at the same time. I had to run the household, take care of the kids, and bring in all the money, but had to always hear about how she would do it. Luckily, she decided she liked drinking and cheating more than sticking around us. Did he come crawling back to you after? If he did, how did you respond? He tried. I wasn't interested. We were married for 15 years, and I would have done anything for him. He broke that loyalty I had for him in half, and I couldn't even stand to look at him. If they'll cheat with you, they'll cheat on you. Karma indeed. Yep, as the saying goes, when the mistress becomes the wife, she's created a job opening. I hope my ex-husband's second wife doesn't get a good night's sleep for the rest of their lives together.
I've heard these phrases and sentiments like this before, where it's like, once a cheater, always a cheater. And I don't want to believe it, because I do want to believe that people can improve and get better, and I'm certain that some do, but it is definitely something to keep in mind, unfortunately, because sometimes this can be true, but I'm sure other times it's not. I don't know. I just want to believe in the best.
Story 3. First wife here who was cheated on. She cheated on him, and now he has a second wife. I'm still friends with my ex-husband and have heard that their relationship was pretty toxic after they got married. Like, she changed completely once she had the ring. What made you stay friends? Despite it all, he's a wonderful, funny, and caring person. I liked him all those years. Looking back, we have made better friends than spouses. Plus, we have kids, and I didn't want to be one of those contentious divorced parents. I wanted our kids to know that two people can divorce and still be adults who co-parent with no conflict. Trying to model that a relationship may fail, and that is okay. How did you find out he was cheating? The typical cheating signs: working late, hiding the phone, etc. It wasn't hard to put 2 and 2 together. On a cheerier note, I was working late one evening and my girlfriend came to the office and surprised me with food from my favorite Indian joint. She might have done it because she was suspicious, but we had a lovely meal and it was quite romantic. Story 4. My first husband fell in love with a friend from university. He would go around complaining to parents and friends how unfair life has treated him and how he is suffering. Divorce wasn't an option for him as a devout Catholic. After about a year, I found proof of his emotional affair and I left him. Turns out she wasn't even interested in being more than friends with him. As far as I know, he's been single ever since. It's been 6 years, I met the love of my life just over a year ago, and I'm pregnant with our first child. Did the other woman even know she was an other woman, or did she just think they were close friends? I can't imagine how alarmed and disgusted I'd be if one of my male friends showed up at my house and announced they'd left their wife for me. As far as I know, she didn't. Maybe just thought he was inappropriate at times. I would if a friend was messaging me in the way he was messaging her. He confessed his feelings after I left and told me himself that she was not interested, but I don't know more details because I didn't even want to hear it. I've heard several stories where the guy left his marriage for someone else before finding out if the feelings were mutual. I understand how tempting a new start could feel and how falling for someone is nice, but that's just jumping the gun. This happened to me. A coworker left his wife and kid for me when I only ever said hi to him in the hall and attended team lunches where he was also present. We were hardly even friends. It was horrible. What's a show that you enjoyed but ended up getting canceled?
Story 1. Punisher. Jon Bernthal was awesome. It's coming back! Writer's strike? I don't know if it is. If it's on Disney+, it better be just as dark. Jon Bernthal was awesome as the Punisher. His performance in the first season made me actually watch Daredevil. I thought that the Punisher scenes in Daredevil were better than the titular spin-off. As much as I enjoyed the first season, I'm glad it was canceled. That second season was pretty weak. First season was amazing, but the second season was weak as hell in my opinion. Didn't even finish it. I'd commit all sorts of terrible crimes if it meant Frank Castle would punish me. Yowza. It's like Shane on The Walking Dead too. I liked Shane on The Walking Dead too, so maybe I just have a thing for Jon Bernthal, lol. Who doesn't? It was kinda bad. Punisher was only good in Daredevil Season 2. That was the only time I actually enjoyed the character. Season 2 of Punisher especially was offensively bad and mediocre. Extremely generic as well. I got sick of the whole CIA government conspiracy to something that should have been a vigilante story of someone who got his family killed and then starts punishing criminals. If you pay attention, the whole plot of the Punisher show was a rip-off from the show and movie called Shooter, an ex-sniper marine betrayed by his best friend that had to deal with a whole government conspiracy almost the exact same way. Agreed! And the character itself felt like a Wolverine light instead of the Punisher. There's ways to flesh the character out without basically molding him to act like a Logan knockoff. The show was a vapid pastiche of a lot of stuff, and the villains are forgettable. Daredevil's not a perfect show, but the Punisher honestly doesn't hold a candle to it at all. Yeah, in the comics, Punisher is almost an emotionless killing machine and very cold, almost like death itself when dealing with his enemies. On the show, Jon Bernthal was all screams and grunts. I confess it was cool in its own way, especially in Daredevil Season 2, but that's nothing like the actual Punisher from the comics. People saying he was perfect and the definitive Punisher don't know what they're talking about. Unfortunately, I doubt we'll ever get new decent content for the character since Marvel itself is canceling and boycotting him nowadays. And if we'll do it will be nothing like the OG Punisher, but another watered-down version. It's a bit telling when the what-if versions of Castle have been the most true to his original self versions in a long time. People were still upset with the whole original Punisher movies for whatever reason, so people claiming the old movies were crap were calling Jon the Second Coming. Jon put on a palatable performance as Punisher. That's really all you need as a Punisher. No silly story, no drama, just death and fury incarnate, just going to town on people. I get why they changed how Punisher would act, and that was simply to make it palatable to the average Netflix watcher. The ending was pretty great though, and I liked the way sometimes episodes felt like a side quest, like the one where they randomly started a last standoff at a far-off police station. Loved the vibe of the show. It really felt like a comic book at times. Good grief. What started off as someone saying, "I'm sad the Punisher got canceled, I wish it would come back," really just turned into another online comic nerd movie show spat. I swear, just everything has to be. It's nothing like the original. Well, in the I don't follow comics really. I read some Spider-Man and Daredevil and The Tick. That was my comics when I was younger. I don't know. I also didn't watch The Punisher. I saw him on the second season of Daredevil, which I didn't finish, but what I saw, John Bernthal was pretty good and handsome.
Story 2. Invader Zim. I loved that show so much. It could get so dark. They did enter the Florpus, but a one-off just isn't the same. JV did make some new comics for Zim. They're good too. I will never get why they canceled the show. I loved that show, especially when it went dark, not just goofy, although the goofiness was hilarious. Gurr was definitely Deadpool before Deadpool became what he is now. Poole started off as a semi-sarcastic, bad-butt mercenary, and even during his own early comics he was a lunatic, but he didn't go all chimichangas until later. Gurr was a goofy half-wit from the get-go. That, and I always saw a lot of Dib and Dwight Schrute. I think for one thing Vasquez clashed pretty badly with Nickelodeon. I saw some of his books prior to Zim, and while I'm glad they went to Zim, I'm surprised they even thought he'd be a good or appropriate choice. Dark Harvest is one of my favorite episodes of any show ever. Why, you're one of the healthiest little children I've ever seen, and such plentiful organs. I'm really sad about Invader Zim's cancellation also. The only silver lining was that after Zim's cancellation, Brian Konietzko, a storyboard artist on Invader Zim at the time, called up his old buddy Mike DeMartino and ended up creating Avatar: The Last Airbender. Zim died, so Aang could fly. Rewatched this recently and it was as demented as I remembered. But honestly, I'd probably put this second behind Avatar when it comes to quality Nick cartoons. Drastically underrated. Speaking of Avatar, did you know that one of the two creators, can't remember which one, used to work on Invader Zim, and because of that cancellation, he was able to pitch and work on his own show. In an alternate universe where Invader Zim had not been canceled, the entire Avatar franchise might not exist. I had no idea. Looks like the Avatar creator was just a background animator on a single episode of Zim, credits anyway, but the story is pretty wild.
Okay, I don't want to geek out about Invader Zim too much, but I'm a little bit of a fan. A huge fan. In fact, one of my dogs, my Great Dane, her name is Gaz, and that's part of the reason. Amazing show. Just go watch it. If you've never seen it, it's delightfully weird and dark. Zim is so good. Oh my God. I have a mighty need for more Invader Zim.
Story 3. Gallivant. People love to be that there are no new original shows anymore. Well, here was a truly original concept, and they didn't watch the damn thing. I'm still bitter. The episode with Weird Al and the monks who took a vow of singing, I laughed so hard my husband ran in the room to see what was so funny. He looked at the TV and said, "Oh, you're just watching that show again." He doesn't appreciate musicals. I'm a 37-year-old man who is not super into musicals. My wife and I absolutely love that show. Yes, that was insanely disappointing. There is really nothing you can do about this one. At least Lassie came back for the Psych movie. I also had the feeling Battle Creek could be the next Psych and Happy a twisted Psych. I miss Psych, but it was time. Yeah, this is definitely the one. Another season of Madalena learning from the Dedel with a Gareth and Sid buddy team coming to rescue her, perhaps with a reluctant Gallivant and Isabella tagging along. King Richard with his dragon, Tad Cooper, whom I super believe in. I'm telling you, it's comedy gold. It's apparently because people hate musicals. Why? You hate fun? You hate joy? You hate laughter? I believe in Tad Cooper. Story 4. Mindhunter. The actor who played Ed Kemper was electric on screen. What a great show. Also great in Umbrella Academy. Cameron Britton, he does such an impressive performance. The BTK tease and Tench's son? Why, Netflix? Why? I read that the female love interest's dad was a BTK killer. There are a few lines she said that are lines that the real-life BTK killer's daughter said her dad used to say to her. The saddest thing is that based on interviews, David Fincher is the one who wanted to end it. Apparently, he found it to be the most exhausting project he'd ever worked on. Also, its cost was too high and not enough people were watching it. Just heartbreaking. Mindhunter is so good across both of its seasons. I put it ahead of even True Detective Season 1. Today I learned Mindhunter was the manual transmission option of Netflix shows. Has a dedicated fan base, but not enough of them across the customer base, and costs too much to produce. The F? They canceled Mindhunter? Was literally telling my spouse he has to watch it and that I'd gladly rewatch with him, for F's sake. Story 5. My name is Earl. It literally ended with the words, "to be continued." Tragic. Yes, the planned ending made me cry. It would have been perfect. What was the planned ending? Earl is having trouble finishing up an item on his list, and he comes across this guy who's been trying to find him because Earl was on this guy's list. Earl asks why he's doing that, and the guy says he got the idea from somebody else and that person from somebody else. Earl realizes his list started a chain reaction of people trying to right their wrongs and ultimately has brought more good than harm to the world, and he decides to be done with it. Also, a black celebrity that was in town was meant to be Earl Jr.'s father, who had intercourse with Joy. Somebody like Lil Wayne or Dave Chappelle, those are the names I saw mentioned when reading on it. Agreed. If you've never watched it, because I hadn't until recently, Raising Hope is by the same director, and the whole show is really funny and has a very similar vibe to My Name is Earl. Plus, there's a number of choice cameos that you'll really enjoy. What movie ending made you say, "What the F"?
Story 1. The Mist. I was totally thrown as I was expecting it to end the same as the short story. King said it's one of his biggest regrets that he didn't come up with that ending on his own. I also like the comment of somebody describing the film as rather meh, but the ending was brilliant. I don't know what film that ending belongs to, but I really want to watch it. To be fair, King also did a lot of nose candy. I know it's an unpopular opinion, but I vastly prefer the book's ending. The movie ending just peed me off because it just felt like a big old F you to the viewers and the main character. Sometimes life just gives you a big old F you and there's nothing you can do but hold it. I get that movies are about escapism, but they also have some grounded parts. The film ending is superior because the entire film is about fear, first from what is in the midst and then from each other. The book ending is classic horror. The film ending emphasizes the lesson inherent to all that fear and what it really means and how everyone succumbs to it. Same. I was super impressed in a what the F wow way when he shot them, and then the army showed up, and I started laughing at just how brutal an ending it was. Laughing in appreciation, mind you. I love it when a movie or book can do that to me. Holy F, I've never found the answer I was looking for faster than this. That ending was one of those things where I was like, now that's just stupid. What a dumb movie. And then a few years later, I'm like, crap, that's the darkest, most twisted ending I've ever seen, and I love it. I'm not personally all that into horror movies. I don't care for them all that much, but I did see this movie, and I do like a movie that makes me feel sad. And the ending of this movie absolutely accomplished that. And yeah, it was very just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that, And hey, Stephen King didn't have to write in some weird, child intercourse scene, you creep. Story 2. 10 Cloverfield Lane. I was expecting something completely different. I loved that movie. John Goodman absolutely kills it. That and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou are my two favorite film roles from him. Not a film, but you should watch Righteous Gemstones if you haven't. My wife and most of my friends strongly disagree with me, but I would have rated that movie near the top of my list had it ended when Michelle opened the hatch. I like the original ending. She kills him, escapes, gets in a car, and starts driving. Movie ends with her coming up in a completely destroyed Chicago, then that's it. I think a better ending for it would be if she escaped, got to the car, then in the distance you vaguely see the ship, and it ends on a note of, holy crap, he was right, without having the action scene at the end. I forgot it exactly, but if you watch Cloverfield and something else when they return on the particle accelerator, something happens in the other movie. You have to start them at the same time, and it lines up perfectly. 10 Cloverfield Lane is such a good movie, and that was the movie that really showed me that John Goodman is a truly incredible actor. But yeah, the whole ending and connecting it to Cloverfield, because there's the original Cloverfield movie, then 10 Cloverfield Lane, which apparently originally Not related to Cloverfield at all. They just shoehorned that in. And then the other one they're talking about is Cloverfield Paradox on Netflix, which is just not a great movie. And yeah, stuff might line up. I don't need that. I just wanted the good part of 10 Cloverfield Lane, which is seriously like 95% of it. If you haven't seen it, go see it.
Story 3. The Prestige. My favorite part of my first experience with watching The Prestige was surprise David Bowie as Nikola Tesla. I was like, wait, holy crap, that's David Bowie! Tesla is immortal. It's a side effect of all the electricity. David Bowie is his current cover identity. Yeah, that game of one-upsmanship got so out of hand so fast, and the ethical and existential question of it are so bananas. Story 4. Pretty sure Sorry to Bother You takes the cake for going in a whole new direction I never saw coming and making me go, what the F? Holy crap, my friend told me we were going to a movie about a guy working in a call center and his struggles. I was not prepared. Seriously, I was high as balls when I saw it too. What a ride. If I watched that on any substance, I'm 100% positive I'd believe I hallucinated the last half of the movie. If you haven't seen I Am a Virgo, you should check it out. Same guy that did Sorry to Bother You, and just as weird. Story 5. Saw 1. I didn't expect the whole twist when I first saw it. Saw's ending was so effing good. Pacing and screenplay for that final scene were perfect, and it had me gaping at the screen. At it, I've been reminded of just how much the music pulls it all together. It is indeed so incredibly hype in a way that has a mass effect without even trying hard. My old friend Lay wrote and acted in it. He's a good dude. I'm sorry, excuse me, are you messing with us right now? Are you for real friends with Lay Whannell? Because if you are, that's the coolest thing ever. I love absolutely everything he does. Yeah, he's a great guy. I dated his brother-in-law. I met them in a crazy way and had no idea who he was till a bit later. It's always fun to see his new stuff. That is so freaking cool. I love all his movies, but when I was in college, I was obsessed with Dead Silence.
I absolutely do not like any of the Saw movies from Saw 2 on up. Just not my thing. I don't like torture-y movies and stuff like that. But Saw 1, the original cut didn't show a whole lot of gore and stuff. It was more suggestive and it was cool. And the twist at the end was like, oh, holy crap. Like, Saw 1, great movie. And that's the one movie that I'm happy I saw.
Story 6. The ending of The Sixth Sense when you realize the truth about the main character is definitely a mind-blowing twist. I finally understand the ending of The Sixth Sense. Those names are the people who worked on the movie. Tracy Jordan, 30 Rock. Yeah, the guy with the hairpiece, it's Bruce Willis the whole time. That's not the twist, Charlie. I was a kid when I watched this and was super pumped when I heard there was a big twist at the end. However, when the end actually came, the twist was revealed in a far more visual, unspoken manner, so my idiot child brain didn't understand it and my mom had to explain it to me. I'm still so mad about it. I wished I waited until I was just a bit older to watch it so I could experience that holy crap moment that everyone else got to experience. Story 7. 7. My local comic and gaming store sometimes posts to their Facebook page unopened boxes of new deliveries. I got into the habit of replying with screen caps from the ending scene of 7. They haven't made one of those posts in a while. I still remember the dead silence in the theater when it ended. Story 8. From Dusk Till Dawn. Wait, rewind that. Was that an effing vampire? What the hell just happened? Did they look like psychos? Is that what they look like? They were vampires. Psychos don't explode when sunlight hits them. I don't give an F how crazy they are. Has to be one of the best lines ever. That and, I may be an a-hole, but I'm not an effing a-hole, is up there too. Clooney's best role, I'd argue. Apparently he says bastard and not a-hole, so my entire world is crashing down. Years of incorrectly quoting this movie. I always look at it as two separate movies. One that ends when they get to the bar. The second movie starts in a crappy bar. Some friends put this on after a few beers. Oh cool, a Tarantino movie, I thought. That was all I knew going into it, and the first act was pretty standard fare. I won't spoil it, but I literally yelled, "What the F?" at the TV when the second act started. Well, it's a Robert Rodriguez film, though Tarantino wrote some of the script. So Tarantino films take place within a cinematic universe, but some of his movies are movies that happen within that universe. So the really outlandish ones are movies that his other film characters watch. Edit, still true, but From Dusk Till Dawn is a Robert Rodriguez film. Story 9, The Usual Suspects, 1995. It wasn't spoiled before watching it. Someone told me beforehand, I won't tell you the twist, but it's not who you expect it to be. So yeah, after that basically knew who it was from the start, effers. Yeah, I had just broken up with someone and was feeling kinda down, decided to take a walk through the arty part of town and saw the poster for this in a local independent theater. Thought it looked cool and decided to go to the movie by myself. One of my best movie theater experiences ever.
It's always so discouraging when there are these just like amazing classic movies from, the 80s, 90s, or even before that everyone's like, oh, it's the most incredible movie, you have to see it. But part of that is based on like how perfectly they set up the twist, because everyone's told you the twist by this point. Like, I go back and watch Citizen Kane, but everyone's already told me what Rosebud is. If you don't know and you've escaped it, watch Citizen Kane before it's spoiled. And just like this for The Unusual Suspects, I found out the twist of this movie before I knew what this movie was, and now that part's ruined for me. And I know a movie is more than just its twist, but it sucks.
Story 10, Gone Girl. Man, that movie is actually so good. I feel like that was during a weird Ben Affleck hate era, but the man's a way better actor than I think people gave him credit for. He's great in Deep Water, similar tonal feel to Gone Girl with Ana de Armas. Poor Neil Patrick Harris's character. Feel sorry for my sister. She's got to be so annoyed at all the trouble the main character gets into by thinking with his D. Rosamund Pike still creeps me out because of this movie. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.